take down your gate, or pay $50 a day. That's the kind of welcome you get from our HOA. Taped right across my fence, screaming like I'd blocked the state highway. Not a quiet little entry I've walked through for 8 years without a peep from anyone. You ever have one of those mornings when you know you're about to step into a storm? Yeah, that was me, standing there, mug in hand, counting down the 72 hours they gave me to comply, neighbors peeking through blinds, a couple filming on their phones just hoping for a scene. So there I am, staring at this violation. Notice, thinking, $50 a day? That's cute. It's paper theater, a scare tactic with no real muscle. They're claiming my private barrier blocks a public path, which is hilarious. Because this path's been here as long as I have, and nobody cared until now. I can feel eyes on me, waiting for me to mess up. That's how it is with these HOA people, rules dressed up like an ambush. My neighbor Holly comes running over, still in her robe, panic in her eyes. Derek, do they really have the right? She's got enough going on, single mom and all, and now she's stuck watching the circus unfold outside her window. I wave the notice. They can find violations on what they manage, but this strip? Not their circus. I go inside and start pulling paperwork, county records, plat maps, maintenance logs, the bones of any real public road claim. If this path's public, there'll be a trail of signatures and ordinances. But something in my gut says this thing's as hollow as. They're threats. I call up Clara, a surveyor I trust. Got a property line mess, need the truth, I say. She agrees to come by tomorrow with her gear. That gives me 24 hours to dig up the official county acceptance log. At the courthouse, the clerk flips through a heavy binder, my street, my address, and that page is blank as fresh snow. No signatures, no stamps, nothing. So, nobody ever made this public? I ask. She shakes her head and points at the maintenance map on the wall. Same story, empty. I snap photos. The evidence is clear as daylight, but I know Cynthia, our HOA president, isn't letting this die easy. I drive home, that little knot in my stomach growing. Cynthia didn't get where she is by backing down. The notice on my fence now feels like a countdown to something bigger than just a property squabble. I crush it in my fist, smooth it out, scan it again. The wording's not about cooperation. It's a threat, pure and simple. Holly and her little girl show up at the fence. Did you find anything? She asks. I show her the photos, blank pages, no acceptance, no maintenance, just a strip the county never wanted. Her daughter, bless her, pipes up. Why do the angry people want to tear down the nice entry? Sometimes kids see it clearer than adults. I kneel down and explain about grown-ups and mistakes and how some people make mistakes on purpose. But I don't tell her about the kind of mistake that gets people in real trouble. As the sun sets, I read the notice again. The legalese sound scary. But if the county never accepted the road, there's no public right-of-way, no HOA authority. Still, something about Cynthia's confidence bugs me. I pour another coffee and prep for Clara's visit. Next morning, Clara rolls up at 7, gear in her truck. We set stakes, measure, document everything, with Holly as witness. That's when Cynthia appears, binder in hand, marching over like she owns the world. CCR Section 12.4 covers all pathways, she declares. Clara inspects the document. Turns out it's a utility easement, not a public road, not even close. Cynthia's certainty starts to crack. Holly's filming, and I can see the wheels turning in everyone's heads. If the county doesn't maintain it, is it really public? Clara finishes the survey. My barrier sits squarely on my property, nowhere near any supposed public right-of-way. Cynthia insists her board voted unanimously, but a vote can't rewrite county law. Holly laughs. Cynthia storms off, and Clara shakes her head. Numbers don't lie, even if people want them to. We wrap up, and Clara promises her official report by tomorrow. I think I've won, but then the mailbox delivers a fresh threat, a property lien notice, signed by all 5 board members. They're threatening to cloud my title if I don't remove the entry in 3 days. That's a new level, and now it's not just about paper threats. They're coming for my deed. I know then Cynthia's after more than rules. She's got skin in the game. The real kicker? That night, someone moves our survey stakes. Clumsy vandalism, obvious as a bear in the kitchen. I call Clara, who comes right over. Tampering with markers is a crime, she mutters, resetting everything, taking pictures. We submit records requests, get the county maintenance map. It's a blank. No public right-of-way, just a utility easement. Clara digs deeper, finds a microfilm copy of a construction permit. Expired in 2001. Never meant to be a road, just a temp path for builders. Never accepted by the county. Here's the twist. Cynthia filed a request to turn this strip into a community trail, boosting her own property values. She owns rentals that back up to the path. Turning private land into HOA amenity was always her end game. I go to the county surplus office, and turns out the land is up for grabs. Minimum bid, $500. I put in $2,000 just to make sure, then sign a boundary agreement with my back neighbor so nobody can argue later. Monday, I get the call. I'm the high bidder. That strip is mine now, legally and officially. Cynthia fires off. Another lean threat, but I just smile. County records, merger deed, all done proper. I file everything at the courthouse. Now my property and the disputed strip are one. No more jurisdiction games. I call my lawyer, who actually laughs out loud. Says I turned a feud into a land grab. Cynthia calls, her voice wobbly. You can't just buy public property. Turns out it was never public. I tell her. The county didn't want it. I bought it, and now it's private. End of story. For her, it's more like game over. County code enforcement comes out to check emergency access. Cynthia shows up, colored maps in hand. The officer asks for a county ordinance number. She's got nothing. He checks his tablet, says my land's private with a utility easement, confirms my alternate access route is more than enough for fire trucks. County records are clear. No public road, no HOA control, no issue. The neighbors watch this all go down. Some film, some just shake their heads. Truth's louder than rumors when you've got paper to back it up. And then, the real bombshell. County records show Cynthia's trail request, her rental investments, her personal motive. Neighbors demand a board meeting. Cynthia gets ousted. The state oversight board opens an investigation. Turns out she diverted funds, faked violations, all for her own gain. They bring in a new president, a retired accountant who swears this won't happen again. I install a new sign, private property, no trespass, with my shiny deed number, and sit back on my porch, sun glinting off the steel. Bollards. Maybe that's the real lesson. Authority means nothing without ground to stand on, and persistence beats bluster every single time. So tell me, what would you have done? Who was right? Who crossed the line? And where does justice live in a neighborhood like this? Drop a comment, hit that like or thanks button if you feel me, and share this with someone who loves a good twist. And if you're fighting your own little war, keep your gates steady, and your coffee even stronger than you'd think after all that. The paperwork marathon, county officials, Cynthia's resignation, things would finally quiet down. That I'd get a week, maybe even a morning, just sitting on my porch, sipping coffee, watching the sun light up those new steel posts like trophies. But you know what? In this neighborhood, trouble doesn't retire, it just changes its face. I barely finished my second cup the next day when my phone started lighting up, texts from neighbors, subject lines like new concerns, parking issues, suspicious vehicles. Suddenly, every little thing on our street became a crisis. The new HOA president, Mr. Harlan, stops by, all polite smiles and a fresh clipboard, asking if I'd mind sharing some context about my little victory with the rest of the board. I almost laughed. Context? After 3 weeks of drama, everyone's got their own version of the story. But I agreed, because that's the only way you keep the gossips from running wild. So that evening, there I am, sitting in the folding chair at the clubhouse, explaining what county records look like, what a utility easement really means, and why the HOA can't just invent their own authority when the real stuff is carved in courthouse stone. I kept my voice steady, but inside I was just tired of fighting over something that should have been common sense from the start. And of course, a few folks tried to stir the pot, asking if my new property was going to attract strangers, or if I'd be building a gatehouse, or God forbid, throwing wild parties. I shut that down quick. Told them if they ever saw more than 2 cars parked in my driveway, it was probably just Clara coming by to update the survey markers, or Holly dropping off cookies because her daughter still thinks I'm some kind of neighborhood superhero. Yeah, that happened. But here's where it got interesting. Cynthia, even after stepping down, wasn't ready to just disappear. She started showing up at open meetings, lingering at the back of the room, quietly rallying the folks who'd lost power. Along with her, I could feel the eyes, hear the whispered complaints, the sideways glances at the coffee shop, like I'd somehow betrayed the neighborhood by standing up for myself. Let me back up SEC. If you've ever lived anywhere with a homeowners association, you know how fast loyalties shift. One day, you're the villain, the next you're a folk hero, and by Friday, everyone just wants their recycling bins back. Harlan, to his credit, tried to set things straight. He called a community vote on a new transparency policy, made all the financial reports public, and even put the HOA budget up online. The vibe shifted. Suddenly people were less angry and more curious. What else had been swept under the rug while Cynthia and her clique were in charge? Turns out, quite a lot. The new treasurer discovered thousands spent on consulting fees and amenity research that never produced anything except fancy binders and color maps, stuff that looked impressive until you realized it was all for projects Cynthia personally benefited from. Now, if you think that's where the fireworks ended, think again. Cynthia, facing a potential lawsuit for misappropriation, hired a lawyer, some hotshot from downtown who drove a Jaguar and wore pocket squares like he invented them. She tried to threaten me with a defamation claim, said I'd damaged her standing in the community. I just handed her lawyer a copy of the county deed, the survey reports, the signed resignation, and the official audit findings. There's nothing like watching a fancy attorney realize he's just been handed a fistful of actual evidence. No drama, just paper, signed and sealed. Of course, some neighbors still grumbled. There are always a couple who think keeping the peace means never questioning authority. But the vast majority? They started to get it. I'd get quiet nods at the mailbox, the occasional thank you note taped to my door. Holly's daughter drew a picture of me, the gate hero, with a bright yellow fence and a cup of coffee the size of my head. I taped it right inside my kitchen cabinet, a private little reminder that standing up, even when it gets ugly, matters. But I'll tell you, the best twist came on a rainy Tuesday when a city truck pulled up and a couple of workers started digging at the far end of the old easement. I wandered over, umbrella in hand, and asked what was up. Just closing out an old work order, the guy said, removing a sign that never should have been here. Turned out, way back, someone, probably under Cynthia's orders, had installed a fake public trail access sign to make the path look official. The city finally got around to pulling it up, dropping the metal sign in the back of their truck. Rain clanging off the roof like punctuation. I watched it drive off, sign and all, and just started laughing. Really laughing, loud enough for Holly to hear 3 houses over. That's the sound of the truth, finally getting a ride out of here, I shouted. She waved back, her daughter waving twice as hard, rain boots and all. That night, sitting by my kitchen window, coffee steaming in my hands, I finally felt the weight lift. Not just because I won, but because I learned just how tangled these little neighborhood fights can get when ego and money mix with a pinch of power. Truth is, none of us own the streetlight or the weather or the seasons changing, but we do get to decide if we'll be pushed around by the loudest voice in the room, or if we'll dig our heels in and stand for what's right, even when it's inconvenient. So yeah, maybe there's a new sign on my gate now, one that says, neighbors welcome, bullies not. Maybe the community's a little wiser, maybe not. But every time I see those yellow posts shining in the morning sun, I remember paperwork, patience, and a few good neighbors can beat any bully, HOA or otherwise. Now, let's be real, if you were in my shoes, would you have kept fighting, or just let them take that strip of land and move on? Drop your thoughts below, argue it out, tell me about your own HOA horror stories, because around here, everyone's got one. And if you stuck around this long, maybe hit that like button, share this with someone stubborn, and keep your coffee strong. You never know when you'll need it.